Welcome, everybody, to Week 11 Value Pick Show. We've got two big winners with me, Mr. Alex and Mr. Pete. Both had lovely weeks this week, thanks to Sherboinked Your Mom and Jeremy, I don't know for him yet, Langford. Pete, we'll go to you first. How did it feel to have your team that you've been dying to lose help Jeremy hit big?
Langford. Well, honestly, it was kind of nice. I liked watching the Bears game. I played Langford in a ton of lineups. Like I played Langford probably in 80 to 90% of my lineups. So watching him go off was great. Watching him go off while the Bears won was cool. I mean, look, I always thought Fox was the right hire. I thought Fangio was the right hire. I thought the Bears were going to turn it around. I just didn't expect them to do it already. Now, we're still talking about a 4-5 team. But if you look around the NFC, and if you look at the Bears' schedule, they got a tough 2 games coming up. Denver, and then I believe Green Bay are their next 2. But after they get through that, I mean, I don't see any reason why not. I don't see any reason why they couldn't be at least competitive for a wild card. I'm not calling it. I'm not saying they're going to do it. You know, one thing I will say, though, Mark, and I think I texted Alex about this real late Saturday night, I played the Bears D all over the place. And the reason was they were only 2,200. They were 2,200 going up against Nick Foles. Okay, you give me 2,200 against Nick Foles every day of the week. To hit cash value, they only needed to score 6.5 points. To hit tournament value, they needed 8.8, and they hit. They scored 9 points. So, I mean, I loved the Bears D this week. I played them literally all over the place. I played Langford all over the place. From that perspective, as a Bears fan, and for somebody who had Langford and the Bears D going in like everywhere, it was great. I just wish I'd put Zach Miller in, you know, everywhere as well.
Well, yeah, Zach Miller was the obvious. Yeah, he's the Gronk 12.0. It seems like everyone that has
he even had the Gronk armband. I don't know if you saw that. Did you guys see the game?
If you score a touchdown past 20 yards, you're automatically Gronk.
Yeah.
Right? Barnkowski scored a TD. You've got Kelsey, who's the original baby Gronk.
Yeah.
You've got Zach Miller, who's like Gronk resurrected, it seems, right? He came out of
Miller legitimately, year, right? Like he looked like Gronk on that
like
play.
2012.
Did you see the play? Did you guys see the touchdown? He looked like Gronk.
Yeah,
Gronk had a 76-yard TD
for like 80+ yards.
Yeah, it was crazy. Anyway, so yeah, it was a great week. I actually did very well, and the Bears did well. And
very good week. Very good week. Alex, do you want to comment on your week, or you want us to get moving and let you continue watching your Maryland B-ball?
I'll throw in a quick. I put in. All right, so I woke up real late, so I didn't put my money in the big $3 play action. I had the smaller one, so like I think it was like 15,000 people instead of 10 times that. I guess is the big one. I won close to 900 on 11 entries. I came in 4th. I should have came in 3rd, but Gio Bernard got those extra 2 yards. I lost 3rd place by 0.14 points, which would have been an extra 250. So it was a good week. It was my big Michael Floyd stack, which I was banging the drum for last week, and everybody was kind of like, I don't really know about that. I was so sure, and it worked.
I benched Michael Floyd everywhere in regular fantasy. I played Stephon Diggs over him. I played Brandon Marshall over him. I mean, I thought that was a pretty obvious one, but it wasn't. I played Brandon Cooks over him, which sort of worked out. So I benched him everywhere, and that turned out to be the wrong move. So in Michael we trust, although now he's hurt.
Yeah, I know. I'm really hoping he... but...
Alex, you trailed off into robot voice. Did he do the same for you, Mark?
Yes, I could not hear what he said.
I'm really hoping
he's also not moving on video.
Yeah. Alex is also doing the podcast on a 1997 Apple laptop. So
the Apple IIe.
Did I cut out?
Yeah.
Really?
You cut out big time.
You should probably upgrade from what was the Mac OS called back then?
I don't know.
Remember?
I didn't even
like Apple OS or something like that.
Yeah, you should upgrade from Windows 98 on your Mac to.
So did you guys miss my whole story then? I guess.
Well, it was DOS way back in the day. Maybe he's still on that.
Nothing would surprise me.
We heard your story, but then you made some comment on Floyd and you went out. So we're just going to ignore you from now and move
I'm good
a little bit on. Michael Floyd had a great week. We'll sum it up with that. Floyd had a great week, and you were banging the drum big time on him. Good enough to actually get me to pick him up in a season-long league for this week in particular, so I thank you for that, even though I still lost the game.
If I would have listened to Alex, I would have hit huge. So
you should never be on the waiver wire.
Also, by the way... anyway, go ahead, sorry.
No, what's that? Go ahead.
I was going to say, super frustrating. Sunday morning, I was looking at my lineups, and I realized that in my mind, I had Langford in 2 mini lineups, and I didn't have James Starks in enough. So, because their prices were almost identical. So I swapped out, at like the last second, I swapped out Langford for Starks in a lineup that also had Shar and Antonio Brown. And that swap, it wrecked me. I still ended up cashing with that lineup. But it took me from like a $200 to $300 cash down to like a $40 cash, which was brutal. So
it was brutal. But I mean, you can't. Obviously, hindsight's 20/20. But when you're waking up in the morning, you see Eddie Lacy's inactive. You see.
Right. That's what I was
Davis
thinking.
Right? I mean, Starks got the opportunities. He got every single carry every single running back carry from the Packers, and he was on the field for like 94% of the snaps. I mean. From an opportunity perspective, he got everything you wanted out of him for that price. He just couldn't get the results.
Yeah, you just couldn't expect what to go for, or couldn't predict
so
that was going to happen. Obviously.
Yeah, so if I were you, I wouldn't have lost sleep over it. You still made a killing this weekend. So again, congrats to you guys, and let's move on to our picks right now. We did have the listener league this week. The winner did not reach out to me yet, so I don't know. Diesel Hog, if you watch the show, please reach out to me, and we'll get you on maybe Thursday. But we'll just quick go over his lineup, brush over it right now. Obviously, no true analysis, but quick brush over his lineup. We've got Derek Carr, 7% owned, Gio Bernard, 3% owned, Jeremy Langford. It looks like he actually won. Thanks to that last little bit by Gio as well. He won by 2 points. So Gio Bernard, 3% owned, Langford, only 5% owned. That's surprising. Antonio Brown, 4% owned. Crabtree to go with Carr, 20% owned. Diggs, 35%. Jordan Reed, 55% owned. Yeah, Allen Robinson, 64% owned. And the Rams D, 17% owned. So with a total score of 169, Diesel Hog took down the listener league this week, so congrats to him or her. And again, if you want to come on and discuss the lineup, let us know, and we'd be glad to have you on and ask what was going on in your head when you were doing this. But until then, let's hit up our value section. As always, we're going to start it off with the quarterbacks, and the first one is Tyrod Taylor. We seem to talk about him quite a bit on this show, especially when we're talking about hitting cash value. He's sitting at 5,200 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel. Pete, are you on the Ty God train for cash this week? I mean, they are going into New England. I believe it's Monday night, the Monday night game. They're in New England. So, you go back to week 2. They hosted New England. He put up 3 touchdowns in the air, 5 rushes for another touchdown. That was his highest output on the season. Is he cash viable for you this week at only 5,200?
Definitely cash viable, and so therefore, obviously, I mean that means you can play him in a tournament. The issue with Ty God, and this is sort of the problem. To hit value, he doesn't have to do a whole lot because of the rushing. So, to hit value each week in a cash lineup, really, he doesn't have to be just a stellar quarterback. He's going to have that solid 4 to 5 point base from the rushing. I mean, he's even scored a few rushing touchdowns, as you pointed out, had a nice game against New England last time. So he doesn't have to do a whole lot to hit value, and that's what's attractive to him. I think he's definitely a cash play. We talked last week anyway about Pete's stacks, for lack of a better term. The listeners asked, how many stacks do you play? And I just said it sort of depends on what I like. I take a look around and I see what I like. I think I will play a Tyrod stack, but probably only one. As I mentioned last week, I play a lot of stacks with the guys that I think are going to do well, and I just play a couple stacks, usually just a single stack for quarterbacks who I'm kind of, on the fence about. And Tyrod, I'm sort of on the fence about, but I do think he's definitely cash viable. And as we talked about, as you see in your, sorry to interrupt you, and as you see in your lower third, which I would love to have mine.
Me
I don't know
too.
what happened to it, but cheap QBs. That's the way you get. That's the way to go. I mean, it's just cheap QBs all over the place. Look at Kirk Cousins last week.
My man, Kirk Cousins, who we spoke about at length as well. Unfortunately, we don't have a Saints defense to pick on this week, but
right.
That's okay. We'll get them. We'll get them next week. They're not the Rob Ryan defense anymore, though. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what goes on there. But all right. So Tyrod for you, cash viable, not necessarily sold on GPPs for him just yet, but further analysis to come later in the week. Really quickly, Jay Cutler. We seem to talk on him every single week. His price uses to go up. 5,100 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel. Taking on the Denver defense. So Alex, really quick on Jay, since we know he's DGAF for you.
All the DGAF.
What do you like him for GPP or cash this week or neither?
I mean, it's not the easiest matchup for him at all by any means. But he's just been good. Am I cutting out again?
Nope, you're good.
Oh,
no.
Okay. He's been outrageously good. I know that this week he didn't really hook up with Alshon or Martellus much. It was really just slinging the ball to Zach Miller and Langford, but he's getting the job done. And I know that these aren't plays that are going to happen every week, but he did this against a very good defense that we expected to just destroy him. And we mentioned last week, he doesn't give a fuck. He's going to make these throws, and the throws worked out again this week, and he's been cash viable and close to tournament viable since he came back from that hamstring injury. And he's still bare bones pricing. I know that there's a lot of guys that are coming in as new quarterbacks, like we're going to talk about soon, but for him to only be $100 more than all of those guys on DraftKings, you have the production mixed with, he's doing it. He's going to give you what he's going to give you. The other guys, you're not 100% sure what they're going to give you. You know what Cutler's giving you.
Yeah, that's what's interesting is, again, and this is actually the second or third time we've brought this up, he's been remarkably consistent. He's been actually quite consistent throughout the year. So that's a good thing. And then the other thing you like about Cutler, look, this is going to sound really crazy saying this, but if he can get it done at St. Louis against the Rams, he can get it done. He can get it done in Chicago. Alex Smith had something like 14, 15 points last week, unless I'm mistaken. Alex Smith put up numbers against the Broncos. Now, admittedly, that was a crazy game where Peyton Manning threw 4 picks and Kansas City just had the ball the whole time. But nonetheless, I think Cutler is usable in cash. He's another name I'm going to make a stack with. Now, the question is, if you're going to make a Cutler stack, who do you stack with him? My thought is, okay, so first of all, a Cutler-Miller stack is actually not the worst idea in the world. That's my first thought. But beyond that, I don't know if you play Alshon after Alshon sort of had a bad week, although he had, what's that corner's name? Janoris Jenkins, is that right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, Jenkins on him the whole week, so that's not, that's excusable. But yeah, I like Cuddy. I like him. I like the price, and again, the key word here is he's been consistent. What on earth is going on? Jay Cutler, consistent quarterback?
Right? How crazy?
Yeah,
at this point, I'd much rather play him than
coming.
Aaron Rodgers. Not even close. Sorry, Mark.
So I really can't argue with you. This week, you could get me to argue with you, but we'd go way off course, and we want to keep this nice and sweet and simple for the viewers. But going up against Denver, Talib's back. You mentioned Alex Smith threw all over, but it was screen passes and a lot of short stuff that they kind of took to the house. So Aqib Talib's return, does that sway you at all, Pete? I know it keeps you off of Jeffrey more than likely, but in terms of Cutler, does it sway you at all?
Honestly, not really. And the reason why is that I think, if you think about it, Cutler, the glory of Cutler is that he doesn't have to do much to justify his value, right? Now, Talib can only take away one player. Well, look, last week, Alshon Jeffrey was ineffective. So, I don't want to say Alshon Jeffrey was taken away, but he was ineffective. He wasn't like a stud. you still got Bennett, you still got Zach Miller, you've still got Marcus Wilson, you've still got Jeremy Langford. Forte might be back. In fact, from what I've heard from the beat writers, Forte probably is back this week. So honestly, no. Like, and that's sort of crazy to say, but no. You guys know that I've been on the Broncos defense all year. And I still am. I still think they're a very viable defense to play, like fantasy-wise, every week, and I'm probably going to be playing them a few times this week, despite what happened against the Chiefs. But no, Aqib Talib doesn't scare me. You know, one of the most underrated aspects of the Bears have been they've been getting very consistent play out of their offensive line, and I think that makes a big difference too. Like, honestly.
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a huge difference, but what I'm saying is, like, this is something that's very underrated. People don't think about that. You know, we always talk about matchups. Well, one of the potential matchups is, you know, how good's your offensive line versus how good's the defensive line, and the Bears' line has been playing very well.
Yeah, they just took on, you know, one of the top 3 defensive lines in the NFL, right, and kept Cutler upright long enough to have a hell of a day and you know, bring home the win, despite your repeated chance to jack off for Goff. But okay,
yeah, they're really
so
screwing
good
that up.
arguments for Cutler there. So, yeah, I guess you're not flying that plane around Soldier Field anymore with that sign, huh?
No, although I still wouldn't mind it.
He wants to. He's just he's stuck with Cutler.
Just accepting the fact that Cutler's our quarterback for now.
I think he's your quarterback for a couple more years, right? He's got some guaranteed money in his contract next year, at least.
Well, technically, yeah. I mean, and it doesn't make sense not to play him next year, but that's a real NFL discussion.
Moving on.
Right, let's move on to Ryan Tannehill. We spent way too much time going on Jay Cutler. That was supposed to be quick, damn it. But
womp, womp.
Ryan Tannehill going for 5,100 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel. Let's see. He last week went into Philly. So here's the first game in 4 weeks where they're going to be at home. He went for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Still hit you cash value at 16 points on his $5,300 salary on DraftKings. Salary goes down $200 on DraftKings. So, Pete, is he cash viable again? Is he tournament viable for you this week, Ryan Tannehill?
I would say more of a turning play for me. I don't trust him yet.
I'm not sure if we lost Pete there, but last thing I heard was that he doesn't trust Ryan Tannehill, and I can't fault him for that. The stats kind of say what they say, right? He's been his last 3 weeks 16, 16, 12. The week before that 27, 18, 14, 18, 27. So he's been inconsistent at best. His salary has been steadily dropping. Going against Philly, against Buffalo, gets this Dallas defense that's better against the pass than those two, especially with Greg Ward actually coming in and being able. Greg Ward, college football on my mind. Hardy coming in and being able to get to the quarterback. Alex, which one for you? Let's just tell me which one is he viable for you in cash or GPP?
Not cash, Torney only if he gets the ball in his playmaker's hands.
It's the only way. I agree. All right, then I'm going to throw the next guy at you. I assume it's going to be very quick. He's another one that we touch on seemingly every single week, and he is your boy, Fitzpatrick, Mr. O Fitzmagic. 5K, bare minimum on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel. Let's see.
Did you guys
get
any
Thursday
of my
night game this past week, right?
I mirrored what you were gonna say. Don't worry.
Okay.
No cash, only the ball in playmaker's hands. Got it.
I signed into my actual
go.
Google account so that I could look up a couple things like stats and that sort of stuff, and it immediately booted me from the call.
Yeah, that's what happened to me when I had to switch accounts too.
So that was our Ryan Tannehill chat. So on to Fitzpatrick there, Alex. Not sure how deep you really want to get into it. 10 days of preparation, right? They just played the Thursday night game.
Yeah, but you said surgery.
Now they go to Houston. He went for 193 yards, 2 TDs but 2 picks, 16 points, so still hit your cash value. How do you like Ryan this week?
Cash if he's playing. He had surgery to fix that thumb issue that he suffered against Oakland because he had the extended layoff. So, I mean, I know he's going to get the extra days of preparation, but that's more for the rest of the team, not as much Fitzpatrick. So he's cash viable, no question. Could be tournament viable. They're playing Houston.
Yeah, actually, I think he's a good play. I really do. I think he's a good tournament play. I think Fitz is an example where I'll play a Fitz Decker stack and I'll play a Fitz Marshall stack. Sorry, Alex.
No, it's fine. I'm just all I wanted to say is he just as long as he's playing, that's it. Like I don't know if he's gonna play.
He's expected to play, right?
Yeah, he's expected to play, but you don't know. Like, it's never a guarantee how like a surgery is gonna like.
True. Heaven forbid there's like some sort of infection or something that we don't know about.
It's just like it might not feel perfectly fine in 9 days after the surgery, and that kind of thing happens. You're having surgery, it's not necessarily a 9-day treatment and it's done. Like, he might miss this week for the rest of the season. It's something that could happen. So that's the only thing I'll say. If he's playing, roll him.
All right. And there's our medical analysis from Dr. Hanowitz for the evening. We're going to move on to Brock Osweiler. Who thought we'd ever be talking about Brock Osweiler in 2015? At least, we'll say, at least over the offseason, right? I mean, as soon as the season started, we all kind of figured it was about time. But sitting there at min price, 5,000 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel. Oh, boy. Let's see. I can't even find it here. Brock Osweiler, he's coming into your town, into Chicago, to take your boys on. He came in, threw for 140 yards, 100 and a touchdown, scrambled 3 times for 18 yards. A lot of people like him. A lot of people like the fact that he's healthy, got a good arm. He's a big guy, knows the offense because he's been in it just as long as Peyton. So, do you trust him against your Bears D there?
You know, all of the stats you just rattled off happened in garbage time, and honestly, no. Osweiler to me is a tournament dart throw and nothing more. Like an Osweiler Demaryius Thomas stack could be really interesting with Emmanuel Sanders likely trending out last I heard. But honestly, no, and I'll explain why. It's the same argument I give every week we talk about a quarterback playing the Bears. Bears defense, let's keep this in mind. They're not that good. But on the other hand, the offense has a high time of possession. They hold on to the ball, and the Bears' defense has been playing significantly better of late. I do not like Osweiler on the road against the Bears. I think it's a bad spot. I think the Denver, we talked about offensive lines. The Denver offensive line has not been playing that well of late. They can't do anything running the ball. I think this has a lot of downside. Definitely not cash. Maybe a tournament stack with Demaryius, but I don't know. It's tough.
So who are you and what have you done with Pete from 3 weeks ago?
I know.
Because you are not the same Pete that was yelling about how you guys needed to lose and everything was going terrible and how you loved it and John Fox was the worst. Now you're things changed. Who are you?
Well, what's interesting is it's not so much that they're winning, because to be honest with you, they're not winning. They should have won. They should have won the Vikings game. They probably should have won the Oakland game, and they lost them both. But what I'm seeing, like when I'm watching the games, is I'm seeing legitimate improvement. They've been one thing that the regime so far has been good at is identifying people who can play. And that's where Mel Tucker and Phil Emery fell short. They've been identifying people who can play specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Who would have thought that they would have turned Shea McClellan into anything? Will Sutton's been playing very well. The defense has been better. Tracy Porter, a guy they found off the street for all I know, has been a solid starting cornerback when he's healthy. So it's just you got to go with what you see. I wanted them to lose. I wanted them to get blown out of the water. I wanted them to blow the whole thing up and rebuild. They've somehow managed to do the opposite of that. And so no, I'm not using Osweiler. This is not the Bears' defense of Week 1. This is a much improved unit from week 1. Week 1, I'd start Osweiler against the Bears. Week 1, I'd start anybody against the Bears. You know?
You couldn't expect that though, because now you're ever since, and I think I mentioned this on the show way back when. Ever since you guys traded away, who was it, Jared Allen and Bostic, it was like, okay, those guys didn't fit your scheme, and you didn't have to force them in anymore. You finally got people to fit the scheme, and your defense was going to actually, perform up to expectations. So, interesting note. Just sorry for the the aside there. Had to find out if you were the real Pete. Will a real Pete please stand up? Had to make sure you were there. It is, but another name that we never expected to say this season was Mr. Case Keenum. I'm still shocked that we're saying this name again. He's starting for, not by injury, but because Nick Foles is just that bad. He's just that bad that Case Keenum has to come in off the street, not off the street, but off the bench, and start for him. So this is a healthy scratch, essentially, a healthy benching. Case Keenum going into Baltimore this week, 5,000 on DraftKings. We have listed here 4,800 on FanDuel. Can that be correct?
Yep.
Really? I thought the minimum price was
nope.
5,000. No, it's 5,000. Oh, on FanDuel. I'm sorry. I'm looking at DraftKings.
Yeah, FanDuel 4,800. So bare minimum on both sites. Alex, I know he's your boy, so have at it.
Okay, first, because you weren't paying attention to my hand being up, I was trying not to talk over people. I'm so down with the Osweiler play in a tournament. Definitely not cash. I thought he threw the ball extremely well, and anybody that's going to study under Peyton Manning for that long has a chance to do anything against any defense. And when you're in that system and Peyton is coaching you on what to do for a full week, knowing that he's going to start, I think he's going to be well prepared. I know the Bears defense is playing much better, but when you have a healthier Manning, with Manning basically as the offensive coordinator for you, there's always a chance that you can just drop absolute bombs. So that's what I have to say about Osweiler. Case Keenum is my boy. I love Case Keenum. If there were ever a DGAF quarterback in all of football, he is the most DGAF quarterback I've ever seen in my life. He slings it and gives no fucks where it's going. It can be picked. It could be caught. It could be 10, 15 yards out of bounds. He doesn't care. He's just going to sling the rock, and if somebody comes down with it, they're going to come down with it with some big-time yardage. That first game he played a couple years ago with Houston, the 3-touchdown game just to Andre Johnson, was incredible. Zero fucks. None. Like, he can. It doesn't matter who he's playing. It doesn't matter what cornerbacks are guarding what receivers. He's throwing the ball in whatever window he sees. And that's tournament.
Yeah, I agree.
And he has some playmakers. And we're gonna talk. I guess we're gonna talk about them with some of the wide receivers that I think could emerge. But when you have Gurley giving you space, having more people in the box, more space to throw the ball,
just bringing people into the
maybe
box,
Quick turns into something. Welker's there to help out. You have Tavon Austin to also help out in the running and short passing game. Two very decent. We're calling them very decent because they're not very good. They're very decent. Very decent receiving tight ends. It looks like it could work. It really could work, and I think it could work this week.
All right. Love to hear that you have another DGAF quarterback. That's like your play this year is the DGAF quarterback,
because
and that's
they don't cost anything, and they just throw the ball, and it doesn't matter where it goes.
There you go. All right, let's move on to Mr. Butt Fumble himself, Mark Dirty Sanchez. Came in. I'm not going to throw it to you. Don't worry. He came in for an injured Sam Bradford. So here's another one starting due to injury. Ended up with 150 yards through the air and a pick. Big surprise. No touchdowns. Going nowhere, actually. Tampa Bay's coming to town for Philly this week. Again, bare minimum on DraftKings at $5K. 6,400 on FanDuel. You've got no real stats to kind of look at him, or for this year anyway, with those weapons around him. But judging on what he was able to do last year in his limited time, Pete, GPP only.
Um. Well, I guess I'm not. I mean, I don't know. I think he could be cash viable, but in my opinion, this is an example of actually a fantastic tournament play. Like, I'm probably stacking Sanchez with Matthews. I'm going to stack Sanchez with Ertz, and I'm going to stack Sanchez with maybe something crazy like an Aguilar. Is Aguilar maybe? I don't know. I haven't decided, but I actually think he's a fantastic tournament play. Yeah, I wasn't totally sure if he was going to play, but I actually like this stack a lot. Sanchez, let's remember, was quite successful when he filled in last year, and at the bare minimum price, I think he's going to have a low ownership percentage. The matchup is fantastic. I think he's a play in tournaments. Probably not cash, but definitely a play in tournaments for me. Alex gives the thumbs up.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are other I know you want to do the Matthew stack, but I don't hate an Aguilar stack. I think we'll talk about that in a little bit, or an Ertz stack, which we'll also talk about.
Yeah. All right. Hey, real quick, let's rank the 5,000 QBs that we've got.
Wait, we're not done.
And then move on. Okay, all right.
We're not done.
All right.
There's so many 5,000 quarterbacks this week.
There's a lot this week in particular, yes. There's been a lot all season, but there's a lot.
I'll be as quick as possible on the next one. It's Jameis. You want to give him the price, and then I'll go?
Yes. Jameis Winston hopping onto the other side of that game. 5,000 on DraftKings, 6,800 on FanDuel. Again, going into Philly on Sunday. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay. His worst output of the entire season has been 13.44. At 5,000, that's your floor. That's perfect. If he does that poorly in cash, who cares? You're just at value anyway, and he has upside for much more. The last 3 games, he's had a rushing touchdown in each game. And this week he goes against Philly, who's going to push the tempo, which means more opportunities for him to throw the ball and be on offense.
They're also pretty underrated, right, against the run. So you'd think that opens up more opportunities in the pass? Potentially getting VJax back, potentially ASJ.
The ability to run more plays is beneficial to anybody. That's why I feel like players do really well against Philly when they're clicking, is because, at least from a fantasy perspective, because they have more opportunities because Philly is just just taking as little time as possible to do what they need to do, leaving the other team with as much time as they want. Or more time than they're used to, I would say.
Yeah, there was a stat I heard earlier this year that I think was true for most of 2013 and all of 2014, and that was the team with the highest pace, the highest number of snaps per game was the Philadelphia Eagles. And the second place team was whoever was playing the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, exactly.
So plays right into what you're saying, gives those guys lots more opportunity, especially more opportunity than they're used to having, right? So, like you said, 13-point floor for Winston, very nice, especially at that 5K price range. Let's dive into what Pete said, though. So we mentioned right here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 QBs at 5K on DraftKings, ranging from 48 to 7,400 on FanDuel. What?
Can we rank cash in tournament? Is that what we're gonna do?
Sure. So
it's different.
You got those 5 QBs. Right? We'll read them off again. Fitzmagic, Osweiler, Keenum, Butt Fumble, and Winston. So Pete, will throw it to you first. In cash, how do you rank those guys?
All right, this is tough. I think the safest play out of that group is probably going to be, I have to agree with Winston. His floor has been quite good. So I'm going to say James. What's that?
Over Fitz?
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, because of the injury concern with Fitz, and I don't know. I mean, it's close. It's definitely Fitz or Winston. By the way, Alex, I've been playing Jameis Winston every week over Alex Smith in the Dynasty League. I'm in second place. Guess who the first place team is?
Mine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
All right, so
the one that I don't own anymore and got kicked out of.
Right. And you were supposed to trade me Cooper for Watkins, and if we would have done that, oh man. All right. Winston, and Fitz call it 1-1A. Probably, so I'm going to go with Sanchez 2 and...
Well, 3.
Sanchez 3, Osweiler 4, Keenum 5 for cash.
Okay. Ready
Tournament very different.
I have Fitz. I would put Fitz 1 because if he plays a full game, it's Fitz. 2 is Jameis because of the floor. 3 is Keenum because you're playing the Ravens and Keenum doesn't give a fuck. 4 would easily be Sanchez, and then 5 has to be Osweiler just because you don't know what you're getting with him. At least all the other 4 I've seen more than a half of tape on.
That's fair.
Okay, so let's go to GPPs. Back to you, Pete. The same 5.
Okay, this gets interesting. I'm going to say the player I most want to take a shot with is probably out of that group. You know what? I'm going to stick with Winston 1. I'm going to go 1A Osweiler. I think Winston and Osweiler are 1-2. I think so. That tells you what I think of Winston. He has a good floor and he has high upside against the Eagles. I'll go Osweiler 2 just because I think extremely low ownership percentage, and as much as I just talked about how much I love the Bears, they also are still the Bears. So, and, Osweiler has weapons, as Alex pointed out. He's got Manning to help him prepare, and he's got weapons. So I'll go with Osweiler 2, GPP. But man, this is tough. Probably Fitz again 3. You know what? I'm going to switch that up. I'm going to say Keenum 3, Sanchez 4, Fitz 5.
Okay.
Just because Fitz doesn't have as much upside, I don't think.
No, I would probably put Fitz 5. I'm going to put Fitz 5 also just because they're playing Houston. I don't think they really need him to throw, to be honest. I think the Bengals just shot the bed and that Houston still isn't really good. So I just think that it's going to be more Ivory than it is going to be Fitz. But for me, I think I'm going to put Winston 4. I'm going to go up backwards. I'm going to put Winston 4 just because he has that floor, but he's only had like one game that was 25 plus and like maybe like 3 20 games. So I don't like he has that great floor, but it's basically he gets the same amount of points every time he steps on the field. Like in that 13 to 19 range is really where I see him. So I don't see that as a huge tournament upside unless ASJ comes back, then it's a different story. 3, I would probably have to say I gotta say Keenum, even though I want to put him 1. Because it's Baltimore.
I thought it's for sure you were putting him 1.
I have no problem with Keenum.
All right, listen, in my head I had him 1, but I just couldn't because I have to put Osweiler 2 because of what we said about Manning and having a full week, and Sanchez 1 because we've seen in this offense he can explode if given time to work with this offense. Like same thing with Osweiler. He has a week to prepare knowing he's the starter as opposed to coming in off the bench. And we saw what he did last year. He had some very, very nice games, especially early when he first came back, when there was less tape on him for that season. So I think with the lack of tape now, he's great in tournaments, and he'll start to fade because it's Mark fucking Sanchez, and he will fade. But for now, he has tremendous upside, especially with that offense.
I agree.
All right, there you go. There's our QB rankings for cash and GPP. I'll actually step in real quick. In cash, I would do 1 Fitz, 2 Winston, 3 Osweiler, or 3 Sanchez, 4 Osweiler, 5 Keenum.
5
GPPs
Keenum?
for me,
This is cash.
in cash? Yeah.
That's so insulting to Keenum. I'm
In
not
cash? No way. No. So
He doesn't give a
in
fuck.
GPP,
Look, okay, hold on. Here's
In
all you need to know
GPPs.
about Case Keenum. He was sitting behind. He was benched like he was number 2 behind Nick Foles. Okay, like that's not good. That's not a good sign.
It's not like he was just there. He got benched for him. He was playing. He played in Houston. He went to St. Louis after the trade. They were trying to make Foles work for as long as they could, and they were just like, "I'm done."
Yeah, but anytime there's a sentence you can say where like the sentence ends with behind Nick Foles, like that's not what you want as a quarterback.
Fine, but he's better than Foles, so it's fine.
Well, that's not hard.
So-
Did you see the play where Foles had, I think it was
That's really
Lance
not.
Kendricks wide open in the end zone?
That was gross.
Oh my God. He overthrew him by like 10 feet. There was not a defender anywhere near the guy.
Terrible.
Wide open.
He's awful.
Foles is just He's not a good QB as we've seen this year. So for me,
By the way,
yes,
how
Case
smart does
Keenum
Chip
and
Kelly
Cash.
look? Bradford for Foles straight up.
He grew up a lot for that, and Bradford it didn't work out for either of them.
It didn't really, but what I'm saying is like he took a lot of flack for that, and like just getting Foles off of your team, getting that contracting player off of your team, I think that's good.
He didn't have.
I think Kelly looks smarter for what he
a
got
contract.
out of Foles as opposed
He
to
got a contract after the trade.
getting rid of Foles. Yeah, but the contract expires after this year. That's not a big deal. I think Kelly looks smarter for what he got out of Foles. The production he got out of Foles, he looks so much smarter for that than he does for that trade.
For getting rid of him, yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, running back.
All right.
Blitz mode running backs.
I'll skip over my GPP picks because apparently I like to cause some ruckus between these guys. So let's blitz mode on the running backs this week. First one we're going to talk about is Mr. Sharkandrick West, a.k.a. Sharboinked Your Mom, per Alex, which he really did this week. He Sharboinked Denver's, all of their mothers, for 2 TDs, 69 yards on the ground, 92 yards in the air. He's gotten 20-plus carries the past 3 weeks, 3, 4, and 2 receptions each of the past 3 weeks. His salary actually goes down on DraftKings 300 this week.
Crazy.
Despite playing,
crazy.
Yes, despite playing a much easier defense in San Diego. So, Alex, what's up with that? Blitz mode, Sharkandrick everywhere, very heavily?
Yeah, don't not play Sharkandrick in any... Like, you have to play Sharkandrick. There was one tweet that I saw that was the most interesting thing about this whole situation. I think the entire time Andy Reid has had Jamal Charles, one time, or maybe 0, it's 0 or 1 times, he has 3 straight games with 20-plus carries. His first 3 games that he's been the starter, he's had 20-plus carries without, like, not getting less than 20. So without Jamal Charles, they are feeding this kid the rock, and he is doing things with it. The one thing that I noticed during the game is Andy Reid is terrible at getting his running back in space, running the ball. But when he gave him space, he looked explosive in the open space, and that's why he ran for that 80-yard catch and run for that touchdown. When he is in space, he is Jamal Charles light. I'm not going to say he's Jamal. He's light. He's a very light version of Jamal, where he can be elusive in the open field.
All right, so play him everywhere, just to reiterate the very beginning of that. Play Sharkandrick
no-brainer
everywhere.
He was a no-brainer play
next
last
guy
week,
up.
and he's $300 cheaper in a better matchup.
He wasn't a no-brainer play because it was Denver,
was.
but I was banging his drum. I was trying to bang his mom, but that didn't work. He banged mine.
Next man up, Gio Bernard, 4,500 on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. Heading into the desert to play Arizona. Just this past, I guess, last night, right? Put up 12.9 points. His salary also drops to $200 with a worse matchup, though, seemingly. His points came through receptions more last night. Against Cleveland, it was on the ground. Pittsburgh through the air. Buffalo on the ground. Pete, what are you thinking comes out of Gio this week?
That's the thing is you don't know, and that's my concern with Gio, is that this offense has so many weapons and also has the dud potential where they can be thoroughly incompetent at times, like the entire Bengals offense pretty much was against Houston. So I don't like Gio. I don't like him as a cash play because to hit value, he's got to actually, in DraftKings at 4,500, he's got to get to 13.5 points, which he's done precisely 4 times this year, less than half the time. So I don't like him as a cash play. And I hate him as a tournament play. His high water mark on the season isn't even 20 points. He hasn't even hit 20 points in DraftKings, and that's with all those catches. So he's not coming anywhere close to that 4 times value you want to hit. Remember, for a tournament, you want to score at least 4 times the cost. So 4 times 4.5 is like 18. Okay, so he's hit value precisely once this year in tournament play, and not by much. He was 19.9. Don't like Gio at all. I'm not playing him in cash. I'm not playing him in tournament games. I mean, I understand that people are using him, and I understand that his whopping 12.9 points last week would have got you won a couple leagues for people, as we discussed at the beginning of the show.
Like
No, the exact same price you can play Sharkhandrick. It's not even a question for me. It's not even close. Alex is raising his hand again like it's third grade.
because I don't know. I don't want to talk over people anymore. So all I want to say about this is last night he had the highest snap differential versus Hill he's had all year. I think he had 80% of the snap, or 80. It was either 80 snaps or 80% of the snaps versus Jeremy Hill, who had 20%. So Gio was the one that they were trusting. Hill looks terrible. I think the inevitable is coming where Gio is the main back and Hill is kind of a change of pace, comes in occasionally. I think Gio's the guy, and in a game where they can get behind quickly, that Gio holds more value because he's going to be that outlet for Dalton, and he could have more than. I see a game where he could have 8 to 10 catches. So tournament, I would love to play him. Obviously, Sharkhandrick is a much better play, but Gio also has a ton of upside, matchup based and snap based.
Okay. I have to agree. The game flow looks like it's there for Gio. But I'm still in Pete's camp. I'm avoiding him at all costs. Just not paying off at his price point, and doesn't look like this week is favorable for him either, despite the game flow being favorable. But overall, very tough matchup against that Cardinals defense in Arizona. Let's move on to the next couple backs coming out of the Washington backfield. Matt Jones, 4,000 on DraftKings, 6,100 on FanDuel, or Alfred Morris, 3,900 on DraftKings, 5,400 on FanDuel. Pete, these guys both ate significantly against that New Orleans defense. Jones had, of course, that huge catch and run, 80-yard catch and run that padded his stats significantly for everything else, and of course helped my Kirk Cousins play. Who's your play this week against that Carolina defense?
Neither of them. I can give you all the fantasy analysis on both of these guys in like 10 seconds, so here you go. The Saints suck. They're really bad. And guess who isn't? The Panthers. Look at what happened with the Titans last week. Antonio Andrews did absolutely nothing after having a couple of decent weeks, like not world beater weeks, but decent weeks. The Titans' running game looks a lot like the Redskins' running game to me, meaning they don't know who their lead back is, and the rest of their offense is sort of shaky anyway. I suspect a repeat this week. I think this is the week to fade all of the Washington players. No Kirk Cousins, none of the running backs. Maybe you use Jordan Reed still, and that's it. Alex is raising his hand like third grade again.
I put them in for the matchup. Carolina has given up, other than week 1, has given up in PPR setting at least one running back on each team to get 10-plus points, and a lot of those guys, and at least 4 guys have hit 20-plus. So it's completely matchup dependent, and I think if I were to pick one, I would rather have Matt Jones because Alfred Morris is really bad.
Yeah, if you're playing one, it's Jones, but I still don't like it.
Yeah, no, it's a purely like why not play, but could pay off just because of the matchup.
Let's go to the next one. I'll take it so that we can blast through it. This is theoretically, we touch on him pretty much every single week as well. His price also refuses to rise, but that's mostly because he just has potential. He's only really hit it in 1 or 2 weeks. 3,300 last week, so stays flat. Oakland coming to Detroit this week. You're playing him GPP only, assuming that, or hoping for Detroit to be playing from behind, basically the most of the game. That's the time of the game where Theoretic comes in. He's catching passes. That's where he's going to get you all of his fantasy value. Any relevant fantasy value is going to come from dump-offs or screens to Theoretic. With Jim Bob Cooter and his offense trying to reestablish the run. There he is. Joique Bell actually got 14 carries this past week.
17.
Only ran for 17 yards, of course, but
yeah.
Joique Bell seems to have taken over a bigger role in running. Amir Abdullah still there, still stealing carries here and there. Stealing, let's see, it was 5 carries and 1 catch. So kind of a three-headed monster there. Take your pick, but I think if you're playing him in a GPP, you're hoping that they start playing from behind early on, and you're hoping for that production there. Not confident that it's going to be very early on that they're from behind, but I'm sure Detroit will trail at some point in that game, and you'll get some value. But again, you're looking for 15 from him in a tournament, and he's only hit that once this year. Not someone I'm going to be high on. Let's move to 2 folks that are going against Pete this week. C.J. Anderson or Ronnie Hillman. I only have their DraftKings prices in front of me. $3,700 for C.J. Anderson, $3,900 for Ronnie Hillman. Alex, do you trust either one of them in a cash game this week at that price, or are they both strictly GPP? Or
no, get those names away from me. Gross.
Pete, any hope?
Nope. No, thank you. Same thing we already talked about.
Right.
The Bears are not a good matchup anymore, and those running backs are not producing. If you look at their history, they're not hitting value anywhere. So, nope.
And you don't know which one's gonna get the work. I mean, I'd almost rather pick between the Redskins' backfield than this backfield at this point.
Okay, makes sense. We did mention Osweiler. We talked about the Chicago D quite a bit. So if you have any questions or just tuning in, you can always rewind and go back and check that out. Got into it pretty heavily with Pete, the Chicago fan. I guess I'll call you a fan again. Yeah.
Well, I've always been a fan. I just hate them most of the time.
So a true fan. I like it.
Right.
I like it. All right. Let's go on to our wide receivers for the evening. First up is another guy we seem to have touched on quite a bit this season. Weeks with Keenan Allen going down, and the matchup's looking juicy. Stevie Johnson, 3,900 on DraftKings, 5,600 on FanDuel. Alex, against Chicago, 7 for 68 out of the slot. KC looking pretty good against Denver, shut them down pretty well. A lot of picks. Are we expecting to be able to shut down Stevie as well now?
No. For me, Stevie is kind of the same thing we've been talking about, where these injuries are breeding opportunities, and giving that full week of practice time knowing your role. This time, now, we already knew they were out Keenan, but then losing Malcolm Floyd in the game turned him into the number one, where he had 10 targets. I think he caught 7 for 68, I believe. But having a full week knowing that you're going to be the number one changes a lot, as opposed to being, I'm the 1 or 1A. Now I am the de facto number one. It's basically going to be him and Woodhead and whoever's healthy and tight ends that are really going to help Rivers out the most. So I expect Stevie to hit 10 to 12 targets minimum, which in DraftKings, that means that stat line plus. So I think that's an easy cash value, and it has a lot of tournament upside.
Okay, let's move on to our next receiver, Michael Floyd. Alex's boy from this past weekend, who vaulted him up the charts, up the rankings. Very, very big game. He went for 7 for 113 and 2 touchdowns against Seattle. In Seattle, he has a touchdown in each of the last 4 games, Pete. Since he coming to town, like we mentioned earlier, Floyd did exit the game. I have to mention Floyd exited the game with a hamstring injury. Apparently, him and John Brown absolutely hate to stretch their hamstrings prior to the game. So, what's your thoughts on Floyd this week? Assuming he plays, are you looking at him to, again, at 3,800 on DraftKings, 6,400 on FanDuel? Are you looking at him in cash games this week?
Yeah, I don't hate it as a cash play. So my thoughts on Floyd are simply, if he is not injured, I think he's playable in both. They're taking shots down the field every game. They're taking them to Michael Floyd, and he's usually catching them. The Cardinals have been an incredibly efficient offense. I'm using him personally. If he's healthy, I think he's both cash and tournament. Cash, again, to hit value, has got to get 11 points. It's 5 catches for 60 yards. And with his touchdown pace that he's established, he's play. Ackwell?
It is pretty impressive.
Eckwell?
I do like
You guys
his
in Beverly
touchdown.
Hills Cop
His
3,
touchdown
when he
rush.
goes Eckwell?
I never saw 3. Is
Oh,
that the one in the
It's
amusement
been a
park?
while.
yeah, that's the best one, I think.
Really? Because
Yeah.
I kept hearing it was terrible, so I never watched it.
I think it's hilarious. I think it's great.
I will watch it because the first 2 were amazing.
I love Beverly Hills Cop.
All right, just
Great movie.
to get back on track a little bit, for Michael Floyd, I don't think the Seahawks are really good. They're not really scary to me anymore for wide receivers. Honestly, that's why I really was banging the drum for Floyd last week. And with Floyd, like I said last week, Arians said he was going to be the number 2. He got the opportunity of being that starting number 2 wide receiver in this offense. When Arians says something, it's going to happen. So if he's on the field and he's healthy enough to play, he is going to get those opportunities of being the number 2 wide receiver in this explosive offense. So if he's healthy, you have to play him. It's too easy.
That's a big if. So they just keep an eye on, how he practices, if he's full participant in everything, and listen for the reports out there coming later in the week, because obviously we have nothing yet. There hasn't been practice or any reports out yet. So big if there, but keep your eyes out for that. They say it's not serious, but we'll see later on in the week. Let's move on to the next wide receiver. And this is a guy who started off the year at $5,700 in salary on DraftKings. He's dipped all the way down to $3,300 on DraftKings, $5,100 on FanDuel. His highest output of the season is 8.4, and that's 3 catches for 64 yards and a fumble lost. So in this recommendation here, Alex, are you for Aguilar, and if you are you thinking about what him and Sanchez did in the preseason at all?
A little bit about when Sanchez came in, I noticed that he was throwing him the ball, and Bradford wasn't doing that. Sanchez was actually throwing him the ball. That's all that matters. That's it. The only thing that matters is being targeted for fantasy points, because when you get targeted more times than not, you're going to catch the ball unless you're Mike Evans and you drop the ball a million times. But with him, all those targets still equal fantasy points. So essentially, you get targets, you get catches, you get points. If Sanchez targets Aguilar, he's going to have a big day.
That's a big if, though, right? I mean, you're not looking at him cash in any way, shape, or form, right?
Not at all.
All right.
I think
so
cut off for cash at wide receivers this week.
Good point. I agree with you there.
I think
definitely agree
LaFell's
with you there.
a
So
cash play. 43.
Yeah, but
LaFell was up
LaFell's
at, I think,
Floyd.
yeah, LaFell was 4,300. So we
And
cut off
Amendola, who we
at
did
4,000 this week.
Amendola 4,000.
We did not talk about.
My bad.
Yeah, Amendola is 4,000 flat on DraftKings. Don't have the FanDuel price up in front of me, but caught 10 balls for 79 yards at a $4,000 salary. His salary stays flat this week, Pete. Do you want to talk about him real quick? Do you think that he immediately kind of steps into this Edelman role?
I think, well, a couple of things. Look, I think he's a fairly obvious play. He's not as good as Edelman. I think they're going to try to fit him into the Edelman role. I think also they're going to try to fit him into the Deion Lewis role. I don't know if he lines up in the backfield, but I think he's in on those short passes. And remember, this is PPR, catches count. So, I mean, Amendola is sort of a no-brainer play to me.
Cool. I definitely agree with you there. I hear a lot of people saying that he's just going to step right in and be Edelman
He won't.
2.0.
He was.
That is
I
not
played in
the
the
case.
fantasy
Right?
last week. He just kept getting the ball. He was doing what Edelman does. He caught 10 passes for 78 yards. He just, it's short? Gimme. Got it. Cool. I'm going to fall down now. That's what Edelman used to do when he was not this year's Edelman, like previous Edelman, I think is more what is freshest in people's minds, because Edelman's been up and down this year, but last year it was 7 catches for 70 yards, 10 catches for 60.
What we've seen more this year is the Pats being willing to change their game plan based on the weakness of the defense. Right, a lot of people say that they do that every year, but this year more so than normal. I think we saw that last week because that was the weakness of the Giants. The Giants were giving it to them, so they said, okay, Amendola all day long. Buffalo, I don't know off the top of my head. Haven't done the research yet this week. Not sure if that's their MO or if they're going to give up a deeper pass. They're going to give something up, give it up over the middle. Depending on what they do, I think that really or what their weakness is, that really dictates who you're going to play. At least for me, on the Pats, whether it's LaFell, Amendola, or Gronk. To be honest, that's my. I can't get behind a sweeping statement that he's just going to come in and catch 7 for 80 every single week. I can't do that.
That's fair. Okay, moving on.
Let's move on then to your potential stacks. Then it looks like this week, Alex, as you're lining up your Case Keenum lineups. Wes Welker coming into this, 3,000 bare minimum on DraftKings, 5,200 on FanDuel, or a guy that I think we've talked about quite a bit, who continues to not really get any looks at all, and that's Brian Quick, sitting at 3,000 on DraftKings as well, 4,700 on FanDuel. Are you stacking either? Which one is your primary stack, I guess, with Case Keenum this week, and which one is your secondary stack?
I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do one of both because they're the same price. Essentially the same lineup. I'm just going to flip-flop them. With Welker, we saw a guy that, I mean, it's not exactly he's playing with Manning or Brady, but he's still that quick outlet that's going to catch a lot of passes, not a lot of yards, and he can be that for Case Keenum. He can basically be. I don't think Tavon is really a check down guy, where Welker is a check down guy, especially in this offense and having not played for so long. And on the other end, Brian Quick, he had that big catch last week for 37 yards, and I think that being almost on essentially it's like being on the second team, the way Quick has been getting snaps and probably in practice as well. He's probably had the most work with Keenum out of any receiver on this entire roster. So if they immediately show chemistry, the ball is going to Brian Quick, and we've seen when Brian Quick gets targets, Brian Quick gets fantasy points.
I think it's a really high upside stack.
Huge high upside stack.
Right.
It could blow up in my face, and they could both get 0 points. But Case Keenum doesn't give a fuck, and I think the ball's going to Brian Quick.
I agree.
Hey, let's cross our fingers and hope, because that'll be. I mean,
dude, he's been sitting on my dynasty team, and I won't drop him. I just won't do it.
One long touchdown pass almost pays off from a cash perspective for the two of them put together, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's for $8,000 combined. I mean, you're that's pretty ridiculous considering you have a couple players that have more than $8,000 themselves.
It's crazy.
Yeah, unreal. All right, so that was it for our wide receivers of the week. Let's move on to tight end. One guy I'm just going to get out of the way real quick, and that's ASJ.
If he plays,
we're going to play him. Yeah, that's it. We've been saying it for the past 3 weeks. That's all the analysis you guys are going to get out of us on that. Because that's so quick, I guess I'll throw these other guys back in the mix. Richard Rodgers, sitting at 3,100 on DraftKings, 5,400 on FanDuel. Let's see, trying to bring up his game log here. Of course, he caught those 2 touchdowns against Carolina, 5 for 19 and 2 touchdowns, 5 for 32 and a touchdown against Detroit. Against Minnesota, I like the play, 3,100 again on DraftKings. Seems to be getting pretty decent looks against a lot of the defenses are keying on Randall Cobb now, right? They're saying, okay, Rodgers, we're going to keep you in the pocket. We're going to keep Randall Cobb contained, make you beat us with everybody else. Rodgers seems to sneak away in the red zone. If Aaron Rodgers can get out of the pocket in the red zone, Richard Rodgers is there, does actually a great job in coming back to the quarterback when the quarterback's scrambling. That's where you've seen a couple of his bigger plays. Like him as a GPP play. I don't like him as a cash play just because his floor is 3 points. 2 catches for 16 yards or 15 yards. That's his floor this year. 6 points, 10 points, 5 points. I mean, his floor is pretty low. But GPP, if he does catch another touchdown, could easily put you at 4 to 5x with one or two catches there. I'm not sure, Pete. Any other thoughts on Richard Rodgers?
No, I think again you pretty much hit them all. I think he's a little upside play, but for the price, that's okay. Especially in a cash game.
All right, let's move over to really quickly, Alex. Zach Ertz caught 7 for 68. Came out of nowhere, a little fantasy zombie action.
10 targets
against Miami last week. He had 10 targets, like you said. 13.8 points. He only went up $100, so his salary is $3,100 on DraftKings, $5,200 on FanDuel. Cash game viable for you this week with Sanchez in there?
with Sanchez, absolutely. I feel like it's last year, and I get to love Ertz all over again because you know how I feel about Zach Ertz. With Sanchez, Sanchez loves throwing Ertz the ball. Sanchez doesn't have the best deep ball accuracy, not quite like Bradford. He's going to use the middle of the field more. And we saw that last year at, week 17 when he had 16 catches? That was with Sanchez. They have rapport. Sanchez wants to get him the ball. As soon as Sanchez came into the game, he started throwing the ball Zach Ertz's way. With Sanchez, Zach Ertz is a no-doubter cash play and has tons of upside with all of those targets.
I agree.
I do. For those who didn't watch last year, Alex has a very big Julio-sized boner for Zach Ertz.
It's not quite my Kelsey boner, but it's close.
No, it's not. But we recommended Kelsey and Ertz on damn near every show last year. It felt like, and every single week, and we continuously. I mean, it was tough. We did get
whichever one we picked to have the bigger day always had the worst day last year. It was ridiculous.
True. Yes. That. Very true. That. So let's hope. Let's ride the lightning that we're on right now, and let's keep the good momentum and good vibes going. Zach Ertz, loving him in cash this week, especially with Sanchez there. Let's move over to real quick. I guess I'll throw it to you, Pete, for a 10 words or less on this guy, and that's only because we've talked about basically everybody else on this team already, and that's Vernon Davis coming in at $2,500 on DraftKings, $5,000 on FanDuel. Hasn't been doing much. Now has a new quarterback. Still learning the system. I mean, are you thinking of playing him at all this week?
He's still a fade for me. Again, his ownership percentage is going to be incredibly low, so from that perspective, he's interesting. But I expect Denver to keep it simple. I expect them not to ask Osweiler to do too much, and that probably means not trotting out a new tight end for a whole bunch of snaps for a whole bunch of plays designed for him. Could it happen? Sure. And with the price, he's a dart throw, but he's nothing more than that.
I'm not going to fade him as much. I think I'm going to play him a little bit, just because when Osweiler came in the game, he looked to Vernon more than Peyton did, and that's really all that matters is the quarterback. And this is the big theme this week. Is there's so many different quarterbacks going this week, you don't know what their chemistry is with all of their receivers. And for me, seeing what I saw on tape on Sunday was Bradford wants to throw the ball to Ertz and Aguilar. Osweiler looked towards Vernon and Demaryius Thomas. And Case Keenum isn't going to give a fuck, even though he didn't have any tape. But essentially, these guys that they come in immediately, and those are the guys that they're looking for first. Those are the guys that I'm going to give the first opportunity to fantasy-wise.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, there's that saying that, what is it, a tight end is a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback's best friend, the quarterback security blanket. So it's even
none
though
of these guys are
Brock
really
and
it's just they're all backups. So you could say this.
Brock is that's why I said rookie or young quarterback. Brock is a young quarterback who has almost as much experience as I do in terms of playing in the pro game. So
right, but Sanchez
he still has. You're misconstruing it. Just skip it. We're going to go on to defense.
All I was saying was that
Chiefs,
it could be said
no,
that
you're not understanding. So just forget it. Just fuck it. It's not worth it. Chiefs defense, $2,600. They look to be like the biggest value this week. double digits in each of the past 3 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4 of the past 5. Sitting at the same price this week, even though they just picked off Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler a total of 5 times, including 5 sacks. Pete, anything other than you're all in on them?
Okay, here's where I disagree with you. First of all, I actually totally agree with you that they're a fantastic value. The Chargers' offensive line is bad. Philip Rivers always has the potential to be a turnover machine. He also always has the potential to light up a defense, too. But I like the Chiefs a lot this week as a play. They are nowhere near the best value. I think you know who I'm going to say already. $2,200 last week. They were only $2,200 last week. Their price they were less than they were like 1% owned, and their prices dropped $200. They're at home now against a rookie quarterback with line issues. Give me the Bears, man. I can't believe I'm saying this. Give me the Bears. You know, they were even without Pernell McPhee last week. He might be back. I kind of think no, but he might be. Even without McPhee, look what they did to St. Louis. And I'm sorry, but St. Louis right now is a better team than Denver with Brock Osweiler. And I know that sounds crazy, but I really think that. I think the Bears are the best value play this week, especially in cash. They're only $2,000. They've only got to get 8 points. You know? What's that? 6 points.
Who
6
are
points
you?
With cash. Wow. Bears are the best value.
Who are
Chiefs
you?
I also
And
love.
what did you do with Pete?
I know.
What did you do with Pete?
Dude, even if they get you 2 points, it doesn't matter. You're spending $2,000 on them.
Right. Chiefs I like. I like the value on the Chiefs a lot, but like I've been putting together lineups using the Bears defense, and it's like I have so much money, like I don't even know what to do with it. Like what?
Yeah, but that's the other thing. Like I was looking at lineups earlier, and like you don't need to save money on defense this week, like at all.
But based on my new strategy, Alex.
Okay.
Based on my new strategy, you do need to spend money on defense, which we will have to talk about more on Thursday. Look at that.
We will talk about more on Thursday. But
what a teaser.
Alex, did you have anything to add on the Chiefs?
The only thing I was gonna add is like don't expect for them to get 5 sacks and 5 picks again, but I think that they're gonna give up more points than they did against Denver, but at the same time.
They call that a teaser or a cliffhanger in show business.
Well, without
I'm sorry.
Rivers doesn't have as many weapons, so I could see a mistake happening that turns into a touchdown, and that definitely helps their value out, and a sack or 2. But I still think Rivers and that offense are going to have a pretty good day as well.
All right. Again, only needing, just over 7 points from them for a cash game hit, cash game value. Needing 10-ish for tournament value. Doesn't look out of the realm for that Chiefs defense that looked really good coming out of the bye. But that's it. That'll do it for us for tonight. Thank you guys very much. Again, please click the thumbs up if you like the video. We appreciate it. And be sure to share it out. Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Blogger, Reddit, Tumblr, Pinterest, whatever you guys want to use. There's only 18,000 social media sites out there now that you can use. So pick one, go for it, share it out. Follow us on Twitter. Hit us up on there in the comments, whatever you guys want. And we'll see you guys on Thursday for the lineup show. For Alex at Alex Henowitz, Pete at P. Karagenis, I am Mark at Emin Milano. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we will catch you on Thursday. Peace.